Hi, am I audible?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the session. We will be starting the session exactly at 3 p.m. out there.
All right. Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending upon where you live. A very welcome to today's session. This is Galvanized Global Education. My name is Pavitra. I'm the co-founder. And today we have a very interesting, informative, and useful session for all of you. And I will introduce my co-host in just a moment. So I do wish to confirm with you that you're all able to hear us. If you can just let us know in the chat, if you can see our screen, if there's anything that you want to sort out, please do it right now. We will get started. So you would probably be knowing about Galvanize, and just to share with you, the students that you see on the screen are students whom we have guided from different parts of the world to pursue their dreams of studying abroad. And it gives me great pleasure to share with you that all of this is done from our, we are located, our office is in India, in Chennai, but we have helped students from all over the world. So I do want to share with you first a brief introduction about Galvanize. You may be knowing that we offer end-to-end personalized guidance for anyone who wants to pursue a global degree. And this means right from the test preparation that you need for your intended target degree to the admissions counseling, whether it's a bachelor's, master's, MBA, or PhD that you wish to pursue, to the last minute support, last mile assistance, such as finding an education loan and other services. And we are very happy to share that we are in education because a lot of us in the management and the founding team have actually experienced personally the benefits of, how transformative, world-class education can be, both for ourselves and for our families. These are some of the countries from where students have enrolled with us. Again, it's a matter of great pride that students from more than 60 countries have actually paid Galvanize for the services to help them pursue their higher education abroad. And we have enabled our students to get accepted to universities in so many countries, right? Especially the popular ones are destinations being the US, UK, Canada, Australia, Singapore, and of course you also have Germany, New Zealand, Netherlands. I mean, all of these locations are attracting a lot of students, particularly from the so-called developing world. And there is something to be said for the, matchmaking here, because these students, the ones who are accepted to good universities in these countries, clearly add a lot of value to the economy of that nation. And also they gain a demographic dividend in terms of bringing talented people from all around the world to contribute to their economy and, eventually, and many of these countries do give you a path to become a permanent resident as well. Right. So what have we helped our students do? First of all, we do have a mobile app, which you definitely check it out. We have more than 1 million downloads for our apps. And do review the feedback on Quora about our admissions counseling services as well as our GRE prep. Our apps are pretty highly rated, and you can see that with more than 20,000 ratings, we have sustained a 4.7 on 5 stars, and they're fully developed in-house. So I have to say that there's a lot of technology and pedagogy that goes into what we offer, which is why we are able to guide students from so many different places. In fact, students from more than 450 Indian cities have enrolled with Galvanize. They've actually, paid us for, to guide them in their journey, right? So it gives me a lot of satisfaction, because when I went through this journey personally for myself, I did not have any kind of support or, guidance to even tell me, what universities I should look at, how do I write an SOP. Everything was new. So while, I was very fortunate to get accepted to Stanford with a fellowship, and I worked in the Bay Area in the Silicon Valley for a while after that. When I returned to India, one of the things on my mind was, given how transformative the studying abroad has been for me, how can I scale that to the next generation and also, give the best possible guidance, which I wish I had, and I wanted to give it, and I also wanted to do it in a scalable way. So this is part of our motivation, which is why we are so excited that you're all there here with us, and we can definitely give you a lot of insights. So I am very honored and privileged to introduce to you my co-host for today. Meet Dr. Anand Ramakrishnan. He holds a PhD in Biochemical Engineering from the University of Mississippi in the US. And after his PhD, as if a PhD was not enough, he went on to obtain his MBA in marketing from Syracuse University in the US. So a lot of you would be wondering about this interesting combination. So we have a lot of very interesting questions lined up as well. And what is unique about, and I'm sure Anand will share more as he speaks, he has a huge depth of experience in the pharmaceutical and the life science industry. He started his career as a scientist, right? And he worked at various companies in the US. Okay, but remember, he also holds an MBA in marketing. So he's somebody who has managed to get the complete picture of what a business needs and to blend two very different areas in a synergistic way. And currently, Anand works at the Commonwealth Serum Laboratories. I'm sure the moment you hear serum, especially in a post-COVID world, your antennae would go up and you would be thinking, hey, he's doing something very relevant. And indeed, this is very relevant. He's an associate director there, brings a lot of experience. And today, Dr. Anand is going to talk about his journey. And he has offered to do so very candidly. And we look forward to hearing from you, Dr. Anand. So over to you. Before that, just for one moment, we would like to run a quick poll to our audience. So you know what Dr. Anand has done. He's done a PhD and an MBA. Now, we would like to know what program you are targeting. All right, we will close the poll in a few seconds. Looks like, almost half of you are targeting a PhD. And I think that's what attracted you to this session. That's fantastic. All right. So this is very, very interesting. Okay, a lot of insights there. So we've got a mix of degrees, right from bachelor's to master's to PhD to MBA, with PhD being the most popular, with almost half of you wanting to do a PhD, followed by master's and MBA. And a few of you actually are studying in school right now and want to do your undergrad degree. And you're already planning like way ahead. So we're so excited. All right. So I think, Dr. Anand, you have a very fantastic audience here. And I'm sure there are a lot of parents also eagerly awaiting, your golden words of wisdom. So let's dive right in. And first of all, I want to thank you for being with us today. And I'm sure all our students and parents are going to benefit. Thank you. So would you begin by telling us, sharing us your journey, just a bit about yourself, your background, your hobbies, just who you are.
Okay. Hi, Pavitra, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to yourself as well as to the wonderful audience that has tuned in. And yeah, I just want to say beforehand, what you guys are doing is really impressive, and the numbers speak for themselves, and that's really fantastic. And thanks for the kind introduction. I hope the attendees find this information useful. So just a little bit, I think you've done a fantastic job about elucidating my journey quite well. I think you've done it better than I would have probably. But anyway, yes. So as you mentioned, I did my undergrad in India in pharmaceutical sciences, and I went to the Department of Chemical Technology, which was affiliated with the University of Bombay. So it's one of the premier institutes for chemical technology studies in Asia, if not the best. And then I did a master's there after my undergrad in biotechnology. That was the time in the mid to late 90s when biotechnology was still an emerging field in India, where there were no formal courses, and this was one of the few institutes which was offering a degree in biotechnology at that time. So that was what I did. And then I went on to I would say accidentally, in the sense, I wanted to always study abroad, but then the way it happened, I'll elucidate that a little bit later. It was an interesting mix. I don't think the University of Mississippi or Biochemical Engineering was essentially a choice that I wanted to start off with. It just so happened, and I'm glad it turned out that way. Sometimes some of these things happen in life, and then they just take you down a different path, and you feel, oh, I couldn't have done it better myself if I had chosen something like that. So that happened, and as you mentioned, I finished that, and I worked for I was in the US for almost 20 years. After my PhD, I worked there for quite a bit, and then moved to Australia about 6.5 years ago, and have been here since. And my current role with CSL, I started only this is my second, almost 3 months now with CSL. So again, a lot of different experiences, which I hope I'll share with you during the next hour or so.
Oh, absolutely. We're very excited. And, one thing I have to say to a lot of students in our audience, they have, some of them have this impression that I need to be from an IIT or a BITS, to get into a top university in the US to do my PhD or MBA there, get this kind of success. And it's particularly inspiring because when we tell people, hey, that's not necessary, it's one thing, but when they actually see and hear people who have gone through that journey and succeeded, it's truly exemplary, right? It's very motivating. So it would be great if we could also speak about that. We will come to that, right?
Yes.
So
yes. Go ahead. Yeah, and I think that's a very good point, because yes, it's always good if you can get to the top universities, but the journey doesn't end there. It's the big universities or the brand names. It's just the starting point. It probably gets you into the door, but it's actually what you do with your time wherever you are, how well you position yourself, how well you develop yourself. That's what determines your future career. So again, I think that's a message you want to impress upon anybody who wants to embark on this journey. Is like, try your best, try to get in there, but then if not, it's all is not lost. There's a lot of options out there, especially.
There are plenty of options, right? And there are so many things you can do. There are many people who have done these things, and you can definitely get motivated. So we would like to understand, what motivated you to pursue your higher education abroad in the first place? Right?
So combination of things, right? So as we said, probably our times are close enough, and we both decided it was a different India at that time. It was probably just opening up, liberalization, email and internets were all still new phenomenon. It was not there. So the allure of like going to a foreign land, or all the images that you see about the different kind of the countries abroad or the foreign countries are all from your movies, and you're like, oh wow, this sounds exciting. So that's one. And secondly, also in our family, we had some good role models. There were a lot of cousins who had done well academically in India and had gone abroad to pursue their education. So it was kind of, you didn't have to look far for inspiration if you wanted to do. And knock on wood, I was pretty good with my academics. And so I said, yeah, why not? And at that time, probably I wasn't ready to say, okay, I finished my education, I want to get into the job market and start working immediately. And so that was also probably the reason. So a combination of different factors. There's the allure of going and studying abroad and experiencing a new culture, a new way of life, being independent on your own. That plus some role models, and yeah.
Oh yes, I definitely agree with you on that. The allure of visiting different places, right? Immersing yourself in a different culture,
Yeah.
a very valuable experience, right? And irrespective of whether you want to live there or settle down there or come back or wherever, I think just having that global exposure broadens your perspective in ways.
Significantly, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and the learning is not just in the university. The learning happens all around you, right? You meet people with similar backgrounds, it's completely dissimilar backgrounds as well, and there is so much to learn from all the different cultures. And the very fact that you are independent, you're responsible for your own managing your day-to-day affairs, you're responsible for managing your own finances, all that I think helps you a lot. And when you come back to India, you're like, yeah, I don't need any help. I'm pretty self-sufficient. And then that's when you realize that you kind of gain that confidence. The first time you go, you're like, oh, this is all a bit intimidating. You go into the airport, you're like, oh, I have to change my plane from here to here. I need to show my passport. I need to have my paper documentation. But you do that a few times, you're like, yeah, I'm a pro. You just like breeze through everything. So that I think you definitely grow as a person, I feel, just by getting that experience.
absolutely, right? So, if you were to study in a hostel in India for undergrad, raise that, but it's like, magnitude, by an order of magnitude when you actually go internationally, that kind of diversity of perspective and background, very interesting. So
Yeah,
that then builds confidence for sure, for sure.
exactly.
Yeah. Totally agree with you. So you did mention that you had a good academic background, and that is something that I want to reiterate to all our students here, especially those of you in your first year, second year, third year. You still have time to work on your academics and polish that. But apart from academics, there are definitely other things that one can do, such as projects or internships, and we would want to understand, what did you do? What kinds of projects did you do or internships did you do that? And how did you sort of convey all that when you built your profile to apply to universities abroad?
Actually, to be honest, the internships I would say helped a lot, but for me it was a slightly different path, in the sense I did my internships while I was doing my PhD, and while I was already abroad, and that kind of helped me quite
Fantastic.
later. Yeah, it helped me later on in my career, and I'll explain that a little bit more. I didn't have too much by ways of experience or industrial experience. I just did a couple of as a requirement as part of the course that you had to do, like a 1 month industrial placement kind of thing when I was doing my undergrad degree, and that's pretty much it. And then for my master's, it was just classwork, and then there was a project which we had to kind of do. I didn't have any kind of internships or industrial experience before I actually went to the US. But once I went and once I started my PhD, very soon I kind of realized that the work I was doing was kind of a theoretical PhD, in the sense it would have been, say, for example, if I had not done internships during the course of my PhD, it would have been kind of a bit more challenging for me to find employment after I finished my PhD. I needed to, like, okay, this is all good, your PhD is good, it's all well and good, but then I needed something beyond that to say, okay, there is more to my resume than just a PhD. So I kind of did 3 internships during the course of my PhD, which is kind of unheard of, because PhD means people just think that, oh, all you're doing is research all the time and you don't have time for anything else. But I actually did a lot of PhDs and a lot of internships during my PhD, and that kind of helped me with my job, with getting a job after my PhD, and then continuing to build my career. To give you an example, in my second year of my PhD, so as you are aware, in the US, when you're on a scholarship, they fund you for 9 months of the year. They don't fund you throughout the year. They say they fund you for both the terms, and there is a big summer break in between wherein there is no funding. So many students at that time either take up odd jobs, or some of them even go back to India and just go home and spend that time, and then they come back at the beginning of the next semester. So in my case, it was the same. There was no money available during the summer. So my advisor was kind of open to the idea. He said, try to see if you can either find a job on campus or see if somebody would see if you can find any kind of internships. So what I used to do just before that summer, spend a lot of hours in the computer lab applying, just looking at different companies all over, just randomly applying. Again, there's no math or nothing was done with just randomly send in like bunch of applications. And what happened was in my first year, there was this company, a small biotech company in Germany, and somehow I applied through a website and they somehow found my resume, and they said, you know what, I had published a research paper the previous year, and so they say, we read your research paper. We are also working on a similar kind of mathematical model on one of the biological systems that we are working in, but we've already bought a new equipment, biosensor equipment, analytical instrument, and if you want to come, we would like to talk to you and learn from your expertise. And they were more than happy to pay a stipend for me, and also they said we'll take care of your flights and everything. I was like, yeah, I'm doing nothing here. I might as well just go to Germany for 3 months. So I ended up going to Munich and I spent 3 months there, and that was phenomenal in the sense I got a lot of hands-on experience. And so what happened? So that translated into my resume for the next year. And so the next summer came, I had that experience on my background, and this time I didn't have to. Pfizer in Illinois, in Chicago, they saw my resume online and they had a similar system, and they said, you know what, we just purchased the system, we don't know how to run it, can you come? And at that time, for a grad student, the money they were offering was quite nice, and I was like, wow, what I would make in 3 months is what I would make for the whole year if I worked in the university with my stipend. So I went there for 3 months. They really loved my work. They said, can you take a semester off and then just work with us for another 6 more months? So I actually took a semester off and I did a full 6-month internship with Pfizer, and I also got 2 research publications out of it. And then I had made so many contacts during. They even offered me, they say, if you want to chuck your PhD, you want to just get your MS, and you want to just think of joining us. I was like, nah, I've already spent 2.5 years. Now I want to get my PhD, which was a good decision. That I didn't bow to the financial incentive and say, you know what, I'll just chuck my PhD and I'll get a job. So I didn't. So I continued. I did that, and so that just really helped it. And then when I made enough contacts, that there were a couple of people who said, like my boss, who was at the internship, he said, whenever you're done with your PhD, whenever you're in the market, just let me know. We'll find something for you. And he actually left. By the time I graduated, he had actually left and he had joined another company. And we kept in touch. And when the time came, he actually offered me a job, which I took. But then I ended up leaving it. But then it was great. So I could not have imagined that from the University of Mississippi with a theoretical PhD that I would actually have a job before I actually graduated my thing. I actually had my offer even before I had defended my thesis. So I was just the last few months were just a breeze. It was just like, yeah, I just need to defend my PhD and just walk out kind of thing. So that really helped me. And then I got my first job after that. And then I just kept building on that experience. Once you're in, you then just build it and then you just keep going to the next level.
No, it was so inspiring to hear of this journey, right? I think going to Germany when you're a master's or a PhD student, and them liking you so much that they dangle this very attractive offer,
yeah.
Right? And then it's a churning inside you and the decision that needs to be made. Now, I'm so glad you walked us through this, because a lot of students will have to make these decisions for themselves, right? And for everybody, it's their own decision, right? Whatever that they take. There's no right answer.
There's no right answer, absolutely. But I think the take home message, and that's what I kind of try to tell. Even there are a lot of fresh PhDs, because there are a lot of fresh PhDs who even now and in the past as well have asked me, like, how did you make the transition from academia to industry? Because PhD is kind of still, the thing is, yeah, you've done a PhD means you're in research, you're going to be doing academic kind of research, you're going to be in the university kind of setup. It's usually that first step to go from academia to industry is usually where most of the people have the biggest challenge. Once you're in, but to get to that point is usually the very difficult part, because a lot of people end up doing postdocs for 7 years, 8 years, and they're still not very happy because the money is not great, and the career is like you're developing as a researcher, but that's pretty much it. You're not really doing like
I mean, you can go into academia, right? Unless that is an option, but yeah.
But then with academia, also a lot of people again don't want to get into that, because then that also becomes very grant dependent. You need to get research grants to run your research, and those things, everything is shrinking right now. The pot for research grants, pot for everything is shrinking, and there are a lot more people trying to dip into that. And so you are going to be, so it's getting only tougher. So a lot of people say, I know what, I'm done with academia, I need to get into the industry, I need to do that. But then they always find that challenge. And then also there's a sweet spot. You have to, how long is too long, right? If you spend 10 years after your PhD in academia is it too long before you may make that transition? So it's again, I won't say this is, again, to a great extent, many of these things have just happened. It wasn't planned. I didn't target it saying that, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to get an internship. I'm going to do well in my internship, that I'm going to get. Some of these things happen, but the idea is to just go with the flow, try to have an open mind about it, because then a lot of people say, no, I'm doing a PhD, I just need to focus on my research, I'm not going to do anything else. And so you need to kind of keep an open mind and see what the end goal is and what your end game is, so that you can accordingly make a decision. So that's what I try to tell people. You know what, keep an open mind. Don't say, oh, this is not for me, I won't be doing this now, I want to do this only 3 years down the line. 3 years down the line, that opportunity may not be there. So when it's there, just take it at that time, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Fully agree with you. And it's all about, taking the decision at the right time and using time well, right?
Yep. And giving and taking every opportunity to put yourself out there, in the sense that a lot of people, there is sometimes hesitation. People are like, oh, you know what, I don't want to go present at this conference, I don't want to go there because my idea is not developed. What if I get criticized, or what if I get laughed at? No, just have a little bit of confidence, just go for it and do it. That's my mantra to them, in the sense, it's like you have to play the game to win the game. If you don't play the game, you're not going to win anyway. So what's the flip side to it? You're not going to get it, but if you go and get it,
exactly, because it's almost like this: if you don't do it, you will never know what could have been. Right?
What could have been? Exactly. And exactly.
So, I often tell our students, like some of them, they say, hey, I don't know if I want to study abroad. I like the idea, but I'm not sure. So I tell them, that's fine. Why don't you still go ahead and apply to universities, right? Go through the process, see what admissions you have in hand. Then you can decide whether you want to take it up or not. Right?
If you don't apply, you're not going to get it. So what's the point, right? Yeah, exactly.
And then you will be constrained by whatever option is in front of you, and then it's no longer an option. It's just, there's no choice. Right?
Exactly.
So we create choices, right? So it's wonderful. Thank you.
No problem.
So, and at this point, we thought we will have another poll, because we wanted to keep this interactive, right? As we hear you and it stimulates their thinking. Now we want our audience to think what they're going to do, right? For example, when are they going to start the process, right? Are you going to, for what term our audience plans to begin their program? So our options are not yet decided: fall 2024, spring 25, fall 25, and spring 26. All right. So interesting. Well, more than 40% of our audience wants to do it in fall, wants to start the fall 24. So you've come at the right time. This is exactly the right time for you to get started, and the deadlines are around the corner. I think in December, January, the regular deadlines, the priority deadlines may already be open. So perfect timing. And all right. So I do have a request to our audience. If you have a question, I know we asked you to raise your hand, but what we will, and I'm very happy that there's a lot of people with interesting sounding names wanting to ask questions, but it would be great if you can just type your question in the chat, and we will call upon you at the end of the session, and we will unmute you, and you can share your video, and you can actually ask your questions, and we will try and call upon those whose questions will be very relevant for the rest of the audience as well. So thank you. So now now that we know everybody's keen on, they're clear. There are a lot of people for fall 25, for spring 25, spring 24, different, intakes. So when you actually get into the process and you have applied and you have sent your applications and that time passes, and then you get to hear from the university, right? So how did you feel at that time? Can you recall and, help us visualize that emotion when you received the first admission letter and your family? What happened?
To be honest, it wasn't. I don't think it was anything remarkable that I would recollect 25 years from now. But I think it was just a normal. It was just a normal day. Okay, we were like, oh, okay, we got the admit. Then there were still steps to be done, and this was at a time where even probably now, to an extent, that the US visa and all was still a little bit in the chance, like you can never be sure that whether you'll get the visa and you'll be able to go and all those things. Okay, that was one thing that came up, and then obviously with parents and you're going so far away. Where is this place? How far is it relative to the people we know in the US? Is it something where somebody can check on you? And all those kind of questions usually come up, and will elicit a lot of discussion saying that, yeah, will you be able to go there, or will they be able to check on you, and those kind of things. And then obviously in my case, I was in the middle of the master's, so I had to actually wrap up my thesis. And progress was a bit slow at that time, and so I had to go. I was like, oh, I need to go tell my master's thesis advisor that I need to wrap up because I have an admission and I want to go abroad. He knew that I was trying, but it was only when you actually get it, you're like, now I need to leave this by a certain date. I need to wrap up. So whatever we've done, let's just try to wrap it up. Let's not try to do more work. So all those kind of things were there. So it wasn't, yeah, it was good, but it wasn't, I won't say, oh, wow, I don't think we were dancing or anything that I can remember, honestly.
Mm-hmm. And also as times change, right? The boundaries are not as scary as before, in the sense, with WhatsApp and video and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Parents know that at any time they can be in touch. Sometimes your family WhatsApp groups are actually a little too much. So
yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of and it's also quite common nowadays. I see many people traveling abroad to attend their children's graduation and so on.
Yes,
right?
Yes,
It's
exactly.
The world has come closer together in these aspects. So
yes, definitely, yeah. I still remember the time we were still in the era of landlines, and we were in the US, and all it used to be like, yeah, we need to find a service provider who would give you the best rates to call India, and there would be rates if you would call between certain times of the day, the rates would be cheaper, and then the long phone bills. Yeah, exactly. It was still the days of MSN Messenger and all those kind of things. So it was, it's a different world, and I
different
think
time, but it paved the way for what we have today. Right? But having said that, I have to share that for a family, the emotion is still very, very intact. Right, the pride of seeing your child go abroad to study, because as a parent, you always want to know that your kids have got a better opportunity than what you had, right? And that you played a part in it. That's what it feels to be a successful parent, and to see them stand on their own feet. So that part is very much there, right? And there is also a lot of sense of personal accomplishment, right? They have checked off a big box. Right, and a very important one. So, of course, and within no time they will start on the next box, but that's a different session altogether, right?
Yes.
Great. Wonderful. So just curious to know, now that you have been through the journey, we are advising our next generation of students, right, and youngsters. What do you think you would have done differently, if you were applying today, right? If you were part of this generation, keeping in mind what all you have, the competition and today's scenario?
Yeah, in today's scenario, what I probably did would probably not work or wouldn't be very effective. I think today's generation, if I were to do the process again today, I'll probably elicit the help of experts who can take a little bit of load from myself. But at the same time, now with the available resources, I would spend a lot more time researching on topics and researching on what I want to do. And yeah, it would definitely be a completely different process, and I would ask probably more questions than what I did, and then yeah, try to be more efficient, and then work towards that in my current degree. So if I am in university, and if I want to do a certain thing, I would make sure that I have the right kind of courses, I have the right kind of background, I don't have any gaps in my resume or gaps in my profile. If there are, then I'll try to fill that up. But yeah, definitely it would be a much more structured, much more well thought out, well planned, well executed strategy than what I did. When I did, it was just basically to give you an example, how I ended up with University of Mississippi was basically when I was doing my master's research in India, I was working on a project, and on that project I was referring to a lot of research papers which was done by my PhD advisor. He had worked on that, so we luckily had email at that time in our university. So I emailed him a couple of questions based on reading some of his research papers, and then I even asked him like, okay, so seems interesting. I'm doing this for my master's, and I would like to do this for my PhD as well. But at that time he said, you know what, I've stopped working on that topic. I'm working on something completely different. But you're more than free to, if that's of interest to you, you are more than free to apply. And I applied. That was my reason to apply to University of Mississippi. So I applied, and then when the admits came, I think I had a couple of admits, and this turned out to be like the best kind of all of that. And so I said, you know what? So it wasn't like, again, that I wanted to work. So I ended up working on biosensors. It wasn't something which I had thought that I would be working on in my master's for a PhD work. So I ended up, the topic kind of was given to me, and I just went with the flow of that. But I probably would not do that now. I would probably, because again, as I said, I got lucky with the internships that I was able to get a job and everything. But if I had not done that, I would have probably struggled. I would have had a challenge. But now knowing that, I probably would have. Now I would do a better research, see what's the PhD, what are some of the prospects after that, how it can help me, and whether that's what I would have done.
Definitely, right. And one of the reasons that I founded Galvanize was precisely to address the gap that you spoke about, because when you're applying, you are doing it once, right? You're doing it for yourself. You're going to do that degree once, right? And there may be many mistakes that we can make, which might not really compromise. We will still end up getting into a university, but you wonder, right, if I had done all the right things, could I have gotten to a better program? Something we hear a lot of our students and generally, the people talking about. So at Galvanize, what we try to do is, because we have guided thousands of students successfully to do their masters, higher studies abroad, there's a certain, insight and intuition and experience that one starts gaining, right? We see trends, and and in fact, over time, we actually see how the requirements of universities also evolve, right? And how different departments evolve. There are newer areas of research for which their master's programs are opening. You can see how as the industry evolves, then academic programs open up to sort of support that, and then some different areas start becoming more competitive, and how one needs to tailor their profile. And for example, even the undergrad situation or the system has also started evolving around the edges, I would say, not as much as I would hope to in India, but definitely there has been progress. For example, engineering students or even arts and science students are mandated to do an internship. Right, and you have to do an internship, and not just summer internship. In some universities, they give you an entire semester to go and do an internship, because that gives you, as you said, you understand what it is to actually work in any organization. Need not be corporate, sector, but it starts. You start making progress every day towards an output. Right. And then you start working with other people. So we encourage our students to do internships, to do research projects, to write about this, because now everybody is doing an internship because it's mandated. Now one has to stand out even more. Right.
Yes.
So, and how and we also find that many students are not sure how to weave their experiences into a convincing and, a coherent narrative in their statement of purpose. Right. So that is also something because we have seen very different kinds of profiles, and the same kind of a narrative does not work for everybody. Right. One has to draw from what is unique and sort of present that, because university sees, they see thousands of applications.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to have something which stands out, in the sense you might have done a lot of work, and it's no point just regurgitating all of that in the thing, whereas you could just get your impact statement out in 2 or 3 sentences, that this is the impact of what I did, and that's all they care for, in the sense they're not probably interested in reading all the details, all the nitty-gritties and all those things. And that's where I think help, and if you can get help, definitely would take that. And to go back to your point, yeah, exactly. Many of those mistakes probably don't compromise your chances, but then if you're not made the optimum choice, your bar for success just becomes a little bit more difficult. You can work around with it, and that's what I kind of tell people as well. But since don't think that this is the end of the road, or you made a mistake. That's it. We all make decisions with the information we have on hand at that given time, right? So hindsight is always 20/20, and you can always say, "Oh, I could have done this better," and that. But at the time of the decision is what you have at that time, and you have to. The important thing is to see how you can pivot yourself away from that, and kind of see where you can. If you made the mistake, try to see if you can pivot and get into something else which can probably alleviate that to a certain extent.
Absolutely. Right.
Yep.
And it is also, and on the other side, we also see some students who end up compromising their applications by opting for assistance, which is very one size fits all. If you don't go to, so something I want to caution students about is that today's university applications, before any human reads your SOP, it goes through a plagiarism detector. It goes through a lot of algorithms and checking to make sure that it is not a cut, copy, paste of something else. Okay. So just as a gentle warning, please do not go to any kind of study abroad expert or consultant who says, "Don't worry, I'll write your SOP for you." Okay, your SOP, it's important to write your story, your uniqueness. We will guide you, we will support you throughout the process, but do not write somebody else's incidents or stories and expect to, or even a template and expect to sail with it. And it can jeopardize your chances of success. So, okay.
Yeah, it's better to be genuine. You may not have all the bells and whistles, but it's better that it's your story, and that's what people appreciate at the end of the day. It's like, yeah, you don't need to, because it should not sound like, oh, this is very, it should be believable, I think, at the end of the day.
Exactly, right? So, yeah. Great. So now we've actually, you spoke about an interesting transition from PhD to, the workplace, or from academic research environment. I'm curious about your transition from biotechnology to chemical engineering as well.
It wasn't a big transition, in the sense, again, this is the beauty of I think probably things are changing in India, but now I think in the US itself, it's in the US or many other countries, you're not like restricted by disciplines, in the sense they can't say, oh, if you're an engineer, you can't study biology. If you're a chemist, you can't do math. It's they kind of see what your background is, your capability, and depending on what you want to do, there are a lot of options for you. In my case, it was purely simple, in the sense I was doing biotechnology, but my project was, even in India, I was working. So the biotechnology course at UDCT, or Institute of Chemical Technology, was a joint course which was run by the food sciences, the pharmaceutical sciences, and the chemical engineering. So we had faculty members from all of these three disciplines who had designed the course. And so we had some courses in chemical engineering, we had some courses in pharmacy, we had some courses in fermentation and food technology. So, and my project was in chemical engineering, and the work I was doing, and as I mentioned, the professor with whom I was in touch with at the University of Mississippi, he was in the chemical engineering department. And so when I applied, it wasn't a red flag or anything. They said, yeah, I've done a project in chemical engineering department. They just wanted to make sure that I had a little bit of the background. So in my first semester, I did a few remedial courses, in the sense for which many of my colleagues who had a chemical engineering background, for them it was a little bit of an elementary or a little bit of a repetition course, but for me it was a lot of new stuff, and I did that. But once you're done, the research is research, and there was biology elements to it, and the bioengineering, and a little bit of engineering elements, a little bit of biology, and a little bit of life science elements in the research itself. So it wasn't a big transition for me. I still had to do a little bit of engineering courses, which probably I didn't use later, or I haven't used later after that. But then that's how it was. So it wasn't that deep of a transition. And that's what I think one of the things you probably also mentioned to many of your students, right? In India, how the disciplines are somewhat rigid, where in India you're doing, if you're interested in engineering, you're doing physics, chemistry, and math. If you're doing biology, you're doing medicine, you're doing physics, chemistry, biology. But then in the US and in many parts of the world, it's like kind of, there is no strict boundaries to that. There are engineers who have there are doctors who have engineering degrees as their undergrad, and then they go to med school and do that. And similarly, a lot of the engineers who work in the pharmaceutical industry, even now in CSL, as well as in my past experience, many of them are engineers, but they know very well about biology because they've studied biology in their as part of their graduate education. So it's not a big transition as one might think.
Yeah, very, very well said, because there's a lot of flexibility to explore other disciplines, related disciplines, sometimes entirely different disciplines or cross-disciplinary areas. And in fact, having an intersection of areas actually gives you a certain uniqueness when you also go to the industry, because not many people have that combination. Yes, of a background as well. So that's great.
Yeah, it's always being interdisciplinary. Is always I've never come across a situation where anybody has told me, "Oh, your interdisciplinary background is a disadvantage." People will say, "Oh, wow, how's that possible?" So it's always good to do.
Exactly. So, we're also curious about how your academic work, what you learned at university in your, in Mississippi, and how did that tie in with your work in the pharmaceutical industry?
So my first job was in the pharmaceutical industry. I was working for a company called Bristol Myers Squibb. It's one of the top pharmaceutical companies in the world, top 20. And they had a facility in upstate New York in Syracuse, and that's where I started working. And as I mentioned, I had done some biosensor theoretical modeling work for my PhD, and I had done some practical experience with running those systems in a lab environment in my internship in Germany, as well as in Pfizer. So I was somewhat uniquely placed in the sense I knew the theory behind everything, but also I had that practical experience. So when I started off as a scientist at Bristol Myers Squibb, I had that background, and so I was in a group which we were almost at the phase of drug approval. Our molecule was almost ready to get approved by the FDA, and they wanted some analytical testing on that done and more characterization work done on that. And that was the time I joined, and we were able to get that successfully through. So that's how. So I think it's all. I can't pinpoint to say this was the learning from my PhD which actually helped. It's all combined. It's all, there's nothing wasted. Everything was there. It just helped me build my profile so that I could directly transition into industry. And then because I had worked in engineering, I had done my people with I had done a little bit of chemical engineering courses. When I joined the industry, there were a lot of we had engineers as well who were running the bioreactors, so when you sit in meetings with them, you kind of, when they say something, you kind of know what they're talking about, because you've learned about that a little bit in school. Even though you may not be an expert, but at least you can understand enough to contribute meaningfully in meetings. So that's where I would say that I can't say, okay, this was directly because of my thing. It was all part of the big holistic learning package, you can say, which kind of helped.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say the academics strengthens your fundamentals so well, right? Especially the education system abroad, that you can pick up things from first principles once you enter the industry, and you can also form the connections, right?
Yep, exactly.
Absolutely.
And even the people in the industry, they also, not everybody can be an expert in everything. So it's almost like, at least in the pharmaceutical industry, they say it takes a village to get a drug approved. So there are a lot of people, and there are a lot of people with different backgrounds and different disciplines who work together, whether they are molecular biologists, whether they are chemical engineers, whether they're mechanical engineers, whether they're computer data science. So all of these people have to work together as teams to get things done. And so with your knowledge, they don't expect everybody to know everything. So you are an expert in your field, but at the same time, if you have that background, you're able to understand and talk intelligently to people in different groups and kind of interact with them and kind of build your own brand within the organization.
Great. It's wonderful, wonderful. So now this is a true transition, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of PhDs actually do not get an MBA, right? And a lot of people, so these are often viewed as opposing polarities, if I may say so. And we would love to know what triggered your decision to get an MBA, and what was the entire journey like. So, just to put some focus on it, right? Before you went in gravitated towards an MBA, right? You talked about the various career options after doing a PhD. For example, you talked about academia, and then you talked about moving to the industry. What else did you consider at the time? And then how did you move towards an MBA? When did you do it?
Not at that time. I didn't consider too many options at that time. So the MBA was more of, again, so I didn't start my MBA right after I finished my PhD. So I think there was almost a 3 to 4 year gap between my PhD and my MBA. I had spent about 2.5, 3 years in the industry as a scientist. I was in the lab. I was managing a small group, etc. And it's always, at some point, there is like, you've done your thing. You're doing stuff in the lab, it. But then always there is, after a while, there might be a little bit of monotony, kind of, not monotony. I wouldn't say you're kind of doing this thing. Okay, what else? Where else is the learning? What else can I do? So the commercial aspects of drug, when you're in that stage of drug approvals, where you're talking to a lot of people from the commercial side as well, wherein we talk about, okay, what's the market size going to look like? How much revenue do you think we're going to generate? So all those discussions start happening, and you start sitting into all of them, and those kind of things start kind of piquing your interest a little bit. So I was like, always, okay, it's always, so I wanted to explore that aspect of learning a little bit more on the commercial side as well. So that was one. The second reason was, we were in Syracuse. We were just newly married. We were just the two of us, and Syracuse, as you know, it's a pretty small town in US. So there's not much to do, and we were like pretty busy with our career. So I said, you know what, maybe this is something I can probably utilize this time to actually develop myself a little bit more. So there was this option of joining Syracuse University and then getting an MBA. And also I was lucky enough that I worked for a multinational company, and they offered financial support for employees who wanted to join, who wanted to get advanced degrees. It doesn't have to be an MBA. It could have been if there was somebody from a bachelor's who wanted to do a master's part-time while working, they would support that as well. So the MBA was just one of the options. So yeah, so all of that, and like my thing was, I want to know a little bit more on the commercial side of the drug business, and that was my motivation to actually do that. And also at the same time, I also wanted to look at career options, like what if I wanted to come out of the research lab and wanted to get into more of a managerial kind of position. So what should I knew that this would definitely not go against me; it'll only help me. So I was like, yeah, you know what, why not? And so that was my motivation to do the MBA.
No, that's fantastic. A lot of students come to us saying, I've just done my undergrad, I want to do my MBA abroad. And we tell them, no, that's not how it works, right? A lot of the good universities actually want you to accumulate that 3 to 5 years of work experience after your, whatever degree it could have been, right? But because when you work in a formal environment, you actually understand how the different teams are supposed to, work together and collaborate, and what everyone's supposed to bring to the table. And it's a lot more than meets the eye. So you can really take the value from the MBA, right?
Yes, exactly. And in your MBA, depending on whatever you're doing, it's most of your MBA stuff is you work in teams pretty much every time for all your projects. It's not a very definite science like a degree wherein you're doing engineering, or you're pretty much working in teams for projects and everything in your MBA. And so that kind of perspective kind of helps, having that industry background wherein you work with different people with different backgrounds, different expertise, different experiences, and that really helps you with your MBA. Just to shed some more light with your PhD, at that time, as I said, it wasn't very clear. Like I did from a PhD, I think the next thing I wanted to do was an MBA. But later on, I found that there are other options as well. It's not just industry, it's not just academia, it's not just like an MBA. There is a lot of value for people who do a PhD to get into intellectual property law. That's another area which I think PhD degree adds a lot of value, in the sense you want to get into patent law. That's a law career is also quite it's very possible after your PhD, and you could probably do that. I had done an MBA. Otherwise, I probably, if I were to do it again, probably instead of doing an MBA, I might have probably ended up doing a law degree and probably gotten into IP law. So that's something for your students to consider as well.
Fantastic. A lot of career pathways.
Yeah, exactly. As I said, the fields it's not like what it was 50, 60 years ago, wherein you do a PhD, or you're a professor, or you're working in an academic environment. You can go into industry, you can go into business, you can do an MBA degree after that, you can do a law degree after that. There is a lot of options.
So, but when speaking of PhD, right, one thing that people always bring up is publications.
Yeah.
And they want to know how do I publish, and how important are publications? This actually two aspects to it. One is if you're applying from an undergrad or a master's student to become a PhD candidate, to get accepted into a PhD program, how important are publications? And secondly, when you're a PhD student, how important are publications to get a good job after you graduate?
Two things. I think in the US, at least, even now, the way I don't think they require you to have. It helps. Definitely, it will be very good if you get a good publication before you get your PhD. But in many countries, like I definitely know in Australia for sure, and in certain disciplines, that they want So if you want to do a PhD, you need to have a publication before you can apply for a PhD or to be considered for a PhD. But I don't think the US requires it as a hard and fast rule that before you want to do a PhD, you need to have a publication. Again, publications become very important. Again, it all depends on your end game. What is it you want to do? Always having a good high quality publication will help you. It doesn't matter. But if you're targeting in an industry job, it's more of your project, what you've done. You don't have to necessarily have a publication, which will kind of as a job requirement. But most good universities would require PhD graduates to have at least 1 or 2 publications before they end up graduating. So you will. It's highly unlikely that you will leave a PhD program without a publication. So it's always good to have. But if you're definitely looking for like a postdoc position or a research position after your PhD, I think the publications are going to be important, because that will kind of indicate to your prospective employer or your prospective new lab to say that, yeah, you're capable of running a research project, capable of documenting, capable of writing up a research paper kind of thing, because you will be required to write grant applications, you would be able to required to give presentations. So that becomes kind of important. So it is an important thing. But again, depending on what you want to do after your PhD, the importance may be slightly more or less.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. So, you spoke about your decision on what prompted you to apply for an MBA, right? I can totally imagine these conversations, in a pharmaceutical company, because there's a lot, there's definitely a heavy, business related decisions to be made. But can you touch upon how the unique combination of a PhD and an MBA has been useful in your career journey till now?
It's been, I think, the thing was with my pharmaceutical thing, I finished my MBA, but then I ended up leaving my role with Bristol Myers Squibb, again for family reasons, and then I dabbled with IP law for a little bit of time when we moved to Texas. But then when I came back, I joined GE Healthcare, and there I was in a commercial role. And so there the PhD was obviously important, because we were again dealing with a lot of the life science companies, life science opportunities. We were dealing with a lot of scientists, but at the same time we were also a commercial organization wherein we were based on revenue. Our incentives, everything were tied to revenues generation. We had territories to manage and all those kind of things. So there it really helped me with my MBA. Again, I would work with my marketing team, and we would be developing marketing programs. We would be developing marketing. We would be going to trade shows. We would be setting up booths and all those kind of things. So there it really, and we would be monitoring the marketing metrics, how the conferences. So there it really helped me with my MBA. So yeah, so I kind of think, okay, I can't definitely say that, oh, I did my PhD, I got my first job, I did research for that, then I did an MBA, then I got more of a marketing job. No, it's not. It's not a linear kind of direct correlation, but the learnings are there, which you kind of apply throughout your different roles. It may be a direct application, or it could be an indirect application, so kind of thing. So that's where I would say. Yeah, I think the take-home message for me is yeah, don't think of it as boxes saying that, yeah, if you do your PhD, you're doing X job, you're doing a MBA, you're doing a certain thing. It's all, the lines are quite blurred. You have to, it's not a very cut and thing saying that this is directly attributable to a certain degree that I got.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it's good that, it sort of, I would say it gets one to relate to different people from various parts of the organization and understand where they might be coming from, because once you might have been in their shoes, and that, or at least look through their lens, and that would be very helpful.
Exactly. Yeah, everything. Yeah, exactly. It's just, in today's world, I think there are hardly, even if you see the job postings and all, there are certain jobs, yes, you need a certain degree, but then the options for the degrees are like unlimited. They'll give you a bachelor's of science degree with an MBA preferred and those kind of things. So they don't definitely say, I want a science degree with a focus on biology or a focus on chemistry, because I think the way they think is that you need to have that basic degree, but then once you are in the organization, there is a lot of on the job learning, and they kind of expect people to be on the job, kind of pick up things as they go along. It's not like everybody will come with all the answers with their education and they'll say, yep, I've learned all this. This is the way it is done. There are times there wherein you would have learned it a certain way, but once you start working, you completely realize that that's not the way you applied. You applied in a completely different way than what you've thought about it, kind of thing. So just having that open mind and like not kind of saying that this will lead to this, the outcome, you may not see the outcome immediately. You may see the outcome in a different time and different phase of your career.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
So it's all synergistic, it's not 1 + 1 = 2, right?
It's not at all. It's not in today's world. It's not at all. Everything. The lines are very blurred. I don't think there is,
Absolutely. So, our next question is, now that you and I think you've actually addressed some of this. The MBA degree. Many people and some of our students come to us with the perspective that an MBA means I can run away from engineering, right? Or I can run away from a science-related field, and I can start taking decisions. It's not so. But that is a misconception. So how does an MBA help two kinds of people? One, who have a technical background, like what we talked about. Two, someone who never wanted to be a techie in the first place, but in India, a lot of people get pushed into engineering and then they find themselves, they find ways to go out of it. So how does an MBA help these both types of people thrive in the industry?
No, that's a very good point you make, and I think with the MBA, I think coming to the first part, yes, the technology, the techie, and everything is good, but then what can happen again, especially if you're, and I've seen that, I see that every day in my current role as well. If you get a PhD and you've spent your time, say you're doing cancer research, and you're like, okay, this is and you're like invested in a drug molecule that you've been working on for 10 years or 15 years, and then you kind of your now focus kind of becomes myopic, in the sense you're like just thinking about the molecule itself, and you don't think outside of that box. But in an organization, you cannot do that. When you're in a research environment, yes, you can do that. You can be there, you can publish papers or other. But when you're working in the industry, you can't do that. At the end of the day, industry is there to make money. You have to work on projects which are commercially viable. It may be the best molecule, or it may be the best drug that you probably have discovered. But for example, if there is no market for it, or if it is just not going to cut it, there is no point in developing it further, because you're not going to make any money out of it. And so having that background, having that commercial knowledge to say, yep, I will, which the MBA will give you to a certain extent, when you can value assets and all those kind of things, really helps you. So even though you may be if you are just a technical person, you may sometimes get just too. You may fall in love too much with your technology that you may kind of ignore all of that, and that sometimes can be a problem in organizations. It has to be commercially viable. So that's the thing I would say for the first part. And the second part of the question was like, you were saying people who didn't want to be a techie and if they get an MBA, I think for them it's like, yeah, if you didn't want to do it and this is your opportunity to branch out, but the technical knowledge is also always going to help, right? Because many of the MBA studies, you need your analytical skills, you need your math skills, you need your verbal skills as well. So no, those skills will not go away. So if you didn't want to be a techie in the first place and you want to do an MBA, it's perfectly fine. You'll find that you are leveraging many of the skills that you've learned in your past life when you're doing your MBA. So I don't think that also is a waste. In my opinion, nothing is a waste. If you really, you just need to you probably apply it indirectly without even knowing it. It becomes second nature. But you would, if you go back and think, it's because you've learned it at some point.
That's a very valid point.
Yeah,
They start applying it without realizing it.
Without realizing it, which you might have thought irrelevant at that point, that, oh, why am I learning this? This is totally useless. I'm never going to use it. But yeah, you're right. You're right. You may not use it in the next year or the next 2 years, but 5 years down the line, you may use it and you wouldn't even realize it, that you had it. So yeah.
Very true. Very true.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, like Steve Jobs said, in his famous speech at Stanford, you connect the dots backwards.
Backwards, right? Exactly.
So great. So now a little bit on work life and we'll get into some specifics. You have actually worked at some of the most prestigious corporations in the industry in your sector, right from Pfizer, Bristol Myers Squibb, GE, now at CSL. You've seen all these environments, right? Can you talk about what it is to work in these places and these companies?
Okay, so these are wonderful places to work, because obviously these are the big companies in their field. So obviously it comes with all the bells and whistles. But more than that, I think it's more of the culture that these organizations tend to build. They try to get the best and the brightest minds, and they try to get a lot of diversity, and they get a lot of people coming in from different backgrounds. So that helps you to grow as a person, because you're meeting people, you're understanding that. Then they give you a lot of the benefits. Many of these organizations have a big emphasis on work-life balance, and so work is important, but at the same time, it should not consume your whole life. So these organizations these organizations make sure that they kind of stress that into you. They give you all the benefits. They have deep pockets, so you're never short of resources. So it's not a struggle. So they do a lot. Then they do a lot of activities within the community. So you get a lot of volunteering opportunities. You get a lot of developmental opportunities. Again, these are organizations wherein there are different departments, different groups. So you can always look for ways of advancing your career. And there are people who, even in these organizations, who go from a science background, who go from a job which requires a pure science background to doing something like marketing, even though they may have not done an MBA degree or anything, but they've built enough credibility within the organization that they apply for roles and they show that they are capable of delivering on those projects. And so you get a lot of options, a lot of benefits like that in working for these big organizations. And knock on wood, I've been quite lucky that I've managed to work in a few of them. So yeah.
That's fantastic, right? I think there are pluses, right, to working in these large, well-heeled corporations. Right. Exactly. And of course, yes, you can also choose to work in a startup, and that's a very different set of advantages. Very different world. So
very different work. So in these organizations, yes. Okay, I talked about some of the good things. I won't say the disadvantages, but some of the things that are challenging is that sometimes things don't happen fast. Things have their sets of policies, their procedures, and you have to kind of go through all of that. And so sometimes it may take time before certain things happen, and so you can get frustrated. Then also these are very big organizations with a lot of people, and so there is a tendency that you can get lost within these organizations, in the sense you could be doing that role for 5 years or 10 years, and you're making good money, you're getting whatever increments, but then chances of career progression sometimes can get stagnated, because it's such a big organization and it's very easy not to be visible. So whereas in a small startup there are only 5 of you, and if you deliver on a big project, it becomes a big thing and everybody knows about it, and then your chances for development are also there. But then again, you can take decisions can happen faster in smaller organizations. But then on the flip side, you have the issues of stability. If things go down south, then you may be out of a job. Whereas with these organizations, if things start going south, it doesn't go south all of a sudden. You can see the sign, and it happens over time, over a course of few years. So that gives you enough time to balance yourself and see what your options are.
Exactly. Like someone put it, it's like a cycle, right? You can
Yeah.
stop pedaling, but it's still going to keep moving for some
Yeah,
time. So
exactly. And all these big organizations, nobody's indispensable. See, whether you
that's
come
true.
or whether you're not able to come for 10 weeks or you leave the job, things will go on because the systems and the processes and everything are so well set up there. Whereas in small organizations, if a few people leave, then everything can get affected. So you can, yeah. So pros and cons either way.
Very true. Very true. Great. So now moving on to a slightly different aspect, in terms
Yeah,
of geography and culture. You've lived in, you've lived actually in all the hemispheres, right? You've lived in the Eastern and Western, Northern and
yeah,
Southern.
yeah.
So, we'd love to hear how you've experienced, particularly in terms of work culture. What differences have you found between US and Australian work culture?
So with the US work culture, I think I would say it's a very driven work culture in the sense everybody is there and everybody wants to kind of get ahead, and so everybody's working hard. Everybody's working, not I would say working hard, everybody's working with a sense of purpose, sense of goal. And there are and the US organizations are pretty notorious if for some reason it's very difficult to hide if you're not doing any work, or if you're so it's kind of you will be caught out if you're not contributing or if you're just slacking off. And that being, and also everybody, there is a little bit of course, in the US, there's a lot of things are tied to your job with respect to your health insurance and all the other things. So the job kind of primarily becomes very very important. Your life can get consumed by your job, and there is work life nowadays. It's getting better, but there is the work life balance. People do work a lot harder or a lot longer, I would say, in the US compared to other parts of the world. So the work life balance can, if you're not careful, it can get disrupted. Australia, on the other hand, as everybody probably kind of has the impression, it's the same. It's not the same. It's kind of, it's a much more laid back society, especially when it comes to work. There is a real appreciation that people have a life outside of work, and that you have to respect that. I have my team. I generally I'm very cognizant of their times as well. So the evenings are out unless it's absolutely critical, life and death. I don't. After 5, you don't expect people to be answering emails or being on calls or whatever. So you try to schedule everything during the time. Friday, usually after afternoons, like after 3 on Fridays, you're done. You don't expect people to respond back or get back to you before Monday 8 o'clock. So from Friday 3 to Monday 8, it's their Monday 8 o'clock in the morning. It's their time. You don't infringe on that unless it's absolutely essential. And to be honest, the most of the 95% of the people are in jobs which are not matter of life and death. Things can usually wait. It's not like there is nothing. That email doesn't have to go out on a Friday 5 o'clock. It can definitely go out on a Monday 8 o'clock, and it still will still be fine. So that's the kind of appreciation that people have for other people's time and everything, and they kind of very strict, very stick to that, and they don't. So yeah, you can email people, you can call them, but they will not. You can't penalize them for not getting back to you, or there's no penalty for that. And that's the kind of work culture they've kind of developed in both countries. The US is a little bit more stressful. It's still driven by revenue, driven by money. You are like you're sometimes you can, but in Australia, it's completely different beast in that way. You have to have that appreciation for the work-life balance.
And I think you really had the best of both worlds. I think when you're starting, when you're young, have a lot of energy, not yet have kids, US is a great place to be. And then Europe or Australia, when you really want to focus on your family also.
You want to do that. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I don't think, but that being said, the US gives you unlimited opportunities to advance. So if you are a person who's like, yeah, I want to get to a certain point in my career, I won't be happy till, or I won't be satisfied till I get to that point, then US is probably the place for you, because the more effort you put in, the higher you can go. There is that recognition. Australia is pretty decent. You can still get to a very good level as well, but it comes with the laid back kind of with the better work-life balance, the better weather, everything. So yeah, I think it's a very individual choice at this point as to what you want with your career. For me, again, just like many other things, and like these things also happened by accident. It wasn't like we were looking, oh, I want to go to Australia now, I'm ready to move out of the US. It just happened at that time, and we took it as a challenge. We went there and we kind of liked it. It wasn't driven by anything special that, oh, we want to go and relocate to Australia, we're done with the US kind of thing.
Well, wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's very important for students. And while these decisions may not weigh in on them today, but this is something that tomorrow, a few years from now, when they make their decisions, trust me, Anand, they're going to look back at what they heard.
Yeah, exactly.
It will inform their decisions.
Yeah, exactly. It's individual. It's like many people don't want to. They probably just want the experience of going abroad and studying and then coming back to India. Like that's perfectly fine. Some people like the work culture abroad, that they say, oh, this is a place I think I want to live and work. That's also fine. So every man, woman, child to themselves, whatever works for them. So yeah.
Fantastic. Great.
Yeah.
So, you did touch upon this earlier, right? In terms of career opportunities you found. So let me not take your time or too much on that. But I'd love to hear some advice from you for aspiring students. One is specifically on very practical, tips and strategies. You've talked a lot about the attitude and, what they need to keep in mind, go or put yourself out there, right? Take your chances. And do you have some suggestions on, networking, resume building, interviewing, hustling, whatever that's something that they can take with them?
I think the biggest thing for me, which I kind of, I won't say struggle, but which was a learning kind of experience for me, is like coming from India. It was like a straight as an arrow, right? You go to school, you do your schoolwork, you prepare for your exams, and you then give the exams, and then whatever outcome comes based on that, you make choices. I think when they step out of India, when you go out of India, I think the important thing is to have an open mind. It's not you have to kind of shed your inhibitions a little bit, in the sense you have to approach people, you have to talk to them, you have to kind of build your network. And the thing which, again, I kind of found it a little bit, I won't say strange, but it's a little bit challenging to initially when I started, was in India, when you're talking to your peer or your professors or somebody senior to you, you tend to refer to them as you are a little bit more guarded in your response. But then when you go to the US, you suddenly see the professors are kind of very friendly with you. They don't expect that you call them sir or doctor or so and so. They sometimes, some of them are on a first name basis, and so those kind of things are like a bit strange to begin with. But then again, you need to kind of have an open mind to that and say, yeah, this is the way the things work here, and try to adapt to that. And then again, putting yourself out there whenever you're given an opportunity to present your work, whether it's a conference, whether it's a poster, whether it's a web-based presentation. Do not accept that. Do not worry about criticism. Do not worry. Nobody's perfect, in the sense people will have to. The thing I tell a lot of people is, like, they'll say, "Oh, my presentation is not ready. I'm not sure about what if I get attacked on this particular thing, and what if I get criticized on that this work is not there." Then you are like, my advice to them is, okay, you'll attack you, they'll attack you, but then at the same time they will have to know enough to attack you, right? First, that's an assumption. And then the second is like, they will have to, then you can put it back on them. Okay, say what do I do? And then they put them back on the spot as like, okay, this is what you should be doing. And if they give you good advice, you take it and say, yeah, that's good. And there's no harm in accepting, or there's nothing shame factor associated with saying that, oh, I don't know this, and I'm sorry, I'm not aware of that. So people, again, that's why I tell people, don't fear. Even in my current job, there are a lot of the people who work for me. I kind of encourage them to do presentations, and they're like, no, I don't want to present at this meeting. I don't know what. I was like, no, don't worry, just do it. It's like it's all a learning experience. You have to do it, and so that's what I kind of. If you're invisible, if you don't put yourself out there, you have to be your own advocate. You have to be your own champion. Nobody else is championing that out for you. So you have to put yourself out there, and you have to do that. So that's that's what I would tell people. And then the thing we talked about, like, don't think, oh, I've made a mistake. Now what do my whole thing is finished. No, there are options out there. There is you can easily pivot yourself out and try to come up with something which you can make the best out of any situation, I would say. So yeah. And sometimes if you are not able to make a decision, let the decision, just go with the flow. The decision will be made for you, and most of the time it will probably turn out to be better than what you would have done yourself.
That's beautifully put. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, totally relate to that.
Yeah.
Something very specific to your field. Do you have any suggestions for students aspiring to study? In bio is such a medical, the sciences, bio-related sciences, biotechnology, bioengineering, biosensors, biomechanical. Lot of people are interested.
Yeah, my thing is, it's a growing field, and I think it's with everything happening, with life expectancies, with new drugs coming, new modalities coming, there are gene therapies, the possibilities are endless. So if this is something that is of interest, then definitely it's a very good avenue to pursue, because I think that healthcare is going to be one of the biggest growing areas in the coming years. So there's always going to be opportunities for that, and because it's such a big field, you don't have to worry that whatever you do will be very relevant. And the other thing, I'm like, even if you don't have studied an undergrad degree, if you don't have an undergrad degree in biology or something like that, don't let that phase you. You can go ahead and still, if this is something which is of interest, definitely you can definitely make the cut and definitely do that. There is it's a very interdisciplinary field, and the more we have people with different backgrounds, different skill sets studying this, the better it's going to be. So yeah.
Fantastic. Yes, it is such a growing area, right?
Yeah, it's a growing area. Yeah, it's just a growing area, and it's such an interdisciplinary area. It's not like you have to have. So there is scope for engineers. There is scope for mathematicians. There is scope for computer engineers to make an impact here. Bioinformatics is growing. All these different things are growing. So you don't have to have a pharmaceutical background, but it's an exciting space to be. So even though I have done different things, it's always the common theme has been the life science pharmaceutical industry. I've kept that in the background. I've done it from different angles. I've approached it differently, but then I have the area has never changed.
Fantastic. Yeah. So, and now it's time for our third poll. We would love for you to answer this question. I mean, you've been given us such insightful responses from Dr. Anand, but we would love to hear from our audience how they felt about today's session. We would love to know. All right. So very happy to share that everybody found our session useful, with more than 70% of our audience actually saying they found it very useful. Right. So, I have to say, thank you so much, Dr. Anand. It was such a pleasure.
Just call me Anand.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. So, and, I would like to just, before we sign off, right, and I want to share a few ways on how Galvanize can help you reach this journey. And then we'll have a little bit of Q&A as well. So one is, if you have not yet downloaded our mobile apps, do go for it. You just have to type GRE into the Play Store. If you're on your Android phone, we will be among the top 3 apps. Definitely you can download that. And for those of you who want to prepare for an exam, such as the GRE or the IELTS or the TOEFL, the SAT, the PSAT, we have guided students from so many places with an average percentile increase of 20 percentiles. So definitely we have test prep. Our SAT and PSAT test prep is also one-on-one. It's live on our GRE, IELTS, TOEFL. It's all self-paced. It's all online. Go for it. And I would say our flagship product is our online admissions counseling, where I'm very proud to share that we have guided students to do their higher studies in more than 140 fields of specialization, right from your very common computer science and engineering related fields, and all the way to soil science, agriculture, forestry, quantum science, and humanities, sports management, cosmetics. So it's a huge, and it's a privilege for us to work with people who are expanding the boundaries of such diverse specializations around the world, right? So, we have a success rate of more than 99%, 99.3% success rate for getting accepted to a reputed university in the country of your choice. So that's in terms of what we offer. I would like to quickly, share with you, these are some of the features for our test preparation. I will not delve into it in depth. You can definitely go online, or you can just fill out a profile evaluation form and you can, hear more about it. And in terms of admission counseling, though, I do want to share that we are end-to-end, right? So right from when we evaluate your profile, we will not recommend universities unless we have thoroughly understood your needs, your goals, your background, whether you want to move, stay in the same area, or move, do something different. If you have a mediocre GPA, what else have you got? So we will recommend universities and classify their likelihood based on our experience, whether they're ambitious, practical, or safe for you. And we will also gather a lot of inputs about your journey. We will give you questionnaires which you can fill, and we will use your own words, your story, to come up with a unique narrative for you and help you through the process of your statement of purpose, letter of recommendations, and so on. And definitely after you get your admits, we will guide you through the visa process, as well as in terms of education financing and the last mile. So end-to-end is our admission counseling. If you're fall 25, 24, your time, you have to start right away if you haven't already done so. This is a profile evaluation session with our team. You can just submit this form, and we will be happy to schedule a one-on-one session with you. Please make sure you give us your resume prior to the conversation. Right. So again, very, very happy about this session. Anand shared with us so many insights, but we would like to take a couple of questions from our audience. I think we'll just have time for a couple of questions.
Sure.
Let me call upon just a moment. I notice that we have students from around the world. We have quite a few students from India and also from Africa. I would love for our international students to also type their questions. Please don't be shy. You've heard a lot of, it can be on anything. It can be about US, Australia. It can be about Ph.D, MBA. It can be about the field, life sciences. Any suggestions that you want. So please do ask your questions. All right, so we have a question. This is a question from Suzanne. And Suzanne, are you comfortable asking your question if we unmute you and going on video, or would you like me to read out your question for you? All right, so yes, so Suzanne's question is, can you address the ease of, either would be fine, then it would be great if you can actually ask your question. Go ahead, Suzanne. We will unmute you.
Good evening, everyone. I had to ask, so I was I'm still deliberating over whether I would like to go into academia or in the industry in the future.
I'm sorry, Suzanne. So sorry to interrupt you. Could you just very briefly introduce yourself? Like, what's your full name? Where are you? What are you doing? Where are you from?
Sure.
And ask your question.
I'm Suzanne Mandal, and I am currently doing my BTech degree in bioengineering in Pune. And I aspire to, currently, I want to get into a PhD degree and work in academia ahead in life. However, I'm still deliberating whether academia would be a better choice ultimately over the industry. My priority is having a balanced life where I'm able to devote enough time for things outside of work and manage the stress as well. So I'd be grateful if I could be guided a little on whether academia is on certain fronts is more stressful, or working here is difficult than in the industry, or which way it goes. I'd just like a few suggestions.
Anand,
Sure.
please.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's again, Suzanne. It's thank you for your question. I think it's. I won't say that one is more stressful than the other, or it's like if you can't make that assessment. There are pros and cons of both, and I think at the end of the day, it comes down to where you are in life, what's your priorities, and what you want to do with your career, and how you want to. What are other things important to you? Whether money is a big motivator, or whether position, title, if that's a motivation. So those are all factors that would come into the equation. Academia, the challenges with academia obviously is going to be grants. You probably will have more of a work-life balance, in the sense you have your research projects. You can probably stagger it. You're not in any kind of deadline. Usually you're in deadlines only when you're applying for grants or you're writing a paper or stuff like that. Most of the other time you can work on a schedule which works for you. Whereas with the industry, you're obviously a part of a bigger organization. There are other people dependent on your input, so you have to kind of deliver for your team as well as for the bigger organization. So that becomes an issue. So with respect to, so again, there could be phases where academic positions could be stressful, wherein you're like you're working towards a grant, and you need that grant for your continued employment, or for supporting your research students, etc. So that would be one thing. So that could be that stressful period with the grant. With industry, you're not worried about that, because you're on you get your salary, and you're kind of set. Academic, if you're lucky and you get a grant, you'll probably have a longer stability with respect to as long as the grant's there. And then if you're lucky enough to get into a tenure track position, you have a kind of a job for life. With industry, if things go bad, then your position may be at a risk. So that's something to consider. Work-life balance, it's again up to you. There are a lot of academic people working in academia who have probably terrible work-life balances, because they are so involved in their work that they probably work 16, 18 hours a day, and they don't even realize it. And so that's something. So work-life balance. Whereas in industry, there is definitely the weekend is your time, and nobody would infringe on that. In academia, you're working pretty much 7 days a week. If you, again, depending on where you want to get to in life. Then the other things to consider, if it's US or Australia, and if you want to live there, or if you want to get immigration and working, then one might be better than the other. If you're lucky and you get into a big multinational company, probably they would help you a lot with the immigration. And if you're really useful for them, they will probably move mountains and get things done for you. So again, it's a lot of factors into consideration. It's not a very clear answer saying that, yeah, this is the best for that kind of thing.
And it's a great response, right? I think ultimately what you're saying is that it all depends on where you want to go.
It all depends on where you want to go, and there are going to be, you can never outrightly say that this is going to be less stressful than the other, and this is going to be giving you a better work-life balance. Many of these things are self-driven, in the sense your work-life balance is pretty much what you decide or you want, in the sense, yeah, if you're disciplined about, yeah, I'm going to spend the weekend and my personal time, I'm not going to be doing any work, that's up to you. If you have that discipline, you'll be fine, whether you're in academia or in industry. But that being said, stress is always going to be, stress is part and parcel of life. There are going to be stressful times in industry, there are going to be stressful times in academia. I can't say that this is going to be less stressful than the other. So, yeah.
Absolutely, right. And there may be certain times within your company, right? Maybe the year end, or when you're looking for your drug to get approved. Suddenly the stress can, there will be phases.
Sometimes you're working on a project and somebody else is waiting on that, and things don't go according to plan, and then you may be stressed about certain things, and then when you start seeing clinical results, and the clinical results are not looking promising, then you're like, if the project gets shelved, sometimes it may affect your job. So stress is going to be there. Yeah, you can't be. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. And sometimes you can be not working at all and still be extremely stressful.
You'll be stressed. If you're not working at all, then you're stressed about where the next meal is going to come from. Yeah, so exactly.
Exactly. So we are moving on to our next question. Thank you, Suzanne, by the way. Appreciate that question. Very thoughtful, and a lot of students don't think that far ahead. So appreciate that. This is a question from Nandu, who's currently an MCA final year student and looking to do a master's in AI. Now, is it possible to do a master's abroad after doing a master's in India or your home country? Absolutely, yes, you can do that. A lot of our students have done that. They have done one master's in their home country, followed by a second master's abroad, especially if the fields are slightly different or significantly different. Right now, if you've already, for example, if you've done an MBA in your home country, you want to do an MBA abroad, then there's a lot we need to write about and explain and make a case. But if you want to do, say, a master's in AI, and your previous master's is in a different field, you're absolutely welcome to do so. But please, you have to tailor your application carefully. So just go ahead and schedule a profile evaluation session, and we can guide you on how we can go about doing that. All right. So I know, great. Thanks for asking your questions, and Anand, thank you so much for your time. This is it was very nostalgic for me also to hear you go about your journey, because then I got reminded of my decisions along the way. And but yes, you've been so candid in whatever you've shared, and the advice you've given, very valuable. So we do want to thank you tremendously, and it means a lot to have you here. So
no problem. Thank you very much. Glad I was able to help and share some insights. Yeah, and all the best to Galvanize, and all the best to the attendees who are coming. Hopefully everybody finds what they're looking for, and yeah, and then I think everybody finds what works for them, and everybody.
Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Now, while we were talking, we just got a couple of questions. I don't know if you will be able to. Eugenie, can you please share your video, and we will unmute you. And if you can ask your question that way, it would be so much better. Can you please unmute, share your video, introduce yourself, and ask your question? You've got asked for a very good question. That's why I wanted to take it up. Eugenie Sabin, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Okay, he says he can only text right now. He's outside. Where are you from? Let us know where you're from and what do you do? So. All right. So, by the way, Eugenie's question is this. How to find the right professor in your specific area of interest? Do you have any advice about choosing that person?
I think it's become much more easier now. You could probably, if you have a field of interest, and if you're looking for something specific in mechanical engineering, you could look at papers in that area, and if you see a common theme or you see a common name appearing, then probably that's that's a good starting point. You can also look at patent websites and see who's got a lot of patents in that area. It's probably usually it will be kind of, if it's a well-respected person or if it's a common thing, you'll probably see a lot of similarities there as well. But I think, I think the best way is to do searches. I don't have any like magic way of saying, yeah, this is the best. But yeah, I think you just have to search around and look for people, look at different websites, look at citations, look at the patent databases. You can do searches on Google. You could probably cite most cited professor in the field of so and so, or most cited researcher and so, and put the specifics, and you'll probably see a few things coming up. So that, I think that's how I would do it if I had to look for somebody in an area.
That's great. Yeah, I think what you're saying, it's almost like, Google's page rank search algorithm. Who is cited the most, right? Well, who has more patents? Because it sort of tells you how many people are looking to their inputs and being informed by them. That's great.
Then once you get some list, you can then do a further deep dive and look at their citations, look at some of the other parameters like the H-index, their site scores and all those things. And then you can see, okay, this person not only publishes, but his work is also well cited by other researchers in the field. So you can even go to the next level of analysis, I would say. Yeah.
Great. So we have a question from Nikita. She's pursuing her bachelor's in computer science, but wants to do her master's in aerospace engineering. So Nikita, I would recommend that you schedule a profile evaluation session and specifically ask to speak with our study abroad advisors and counselors, and we will try and guide you. It actually, I would just say that a lot depends on how strongly we make the case, right? Because if you may not have a lot of the undergraduate coursework needed, but let's actually understand where this is coming from, and then we can see if we can chart a path forward, right? All right. Thank you, everybody. This has been great. I hope we all had a good time and you learned a lot. And I wish you all the very best. And Anand, thank you once again for your time. It's taken a lot of your time, but it's been very helpful. So thank you.
Thanks. Glad to help. Thank you. Thank you all. All the best.
All right. Bye.